Hi, my name's Andrew. In this video, I wanted to delve into what people actually think is causing their problems to begin with, their mental problems, whether it be bipolar or any other kind of mood disorder, whether it be anxiety, depression. Although I don't think anxiety is a mood as such, but anything along those lines anyway. And in this context, I'm going to reference just an article I have here. I mean, they're not hard to find on the internet, but I thought I'd just have a quick look and see what one of the first things that comes up when I looked up, what is the causes of mood disorders, for instance. And in it starts to give some ideas, but what it does is outlines, some of the things that you experience and feel. And before I get into that, the question is, what do you think causes it? And I know that a lot of us are told things by therapists, psychiatrists, or whatever, about what the reason is, what causes it. But again, I mean, those things can vary quite a lot, and ultimately, I don't think you really get to the core of it a lot of the time, because a lot of the time they don't really know, because it's such a varied thing. It's individual to some extent. There are some similarities, of course, but even looking beyond that, it's what do you think's causing it? Do you really believe that it's just a chemical imbalance completely, and that there's no way out of this? And if so, why do you believe that? I mean, of course, I know that that's going to be told to you by various professionals, but there's also going to be ones who, perhaps on the outside of that, who don't believe that either. We can look at that when I can't remember his name now, but one of the head psychiatrists with I think it was the Diagnostic Manual for Mental Health Conditions, I think the 4th edition, can't remember his name. He actually came out, I think, publicly at one point and thought a lot of it was, well, how can I best put this softly, that it was a bit of nonsense, a lot of it. Okay, not to say that people aren't experiencing things, not to say you're not experiencing what you're feeling and symptoms, but a lot of the time when we're using these diagnoses, whether they're given to us or we have them ourselves, been given to us, and even what we might believe that we actually have going ourselves, what we're describing is an experience. Depression is an experience. It's a symptom. It's an experience. But what's the cause of it? You always got to get to the cause of anything if you want to resolve it. Again, I've mentioned this before in other videos, that a big part of the problem is that you go to a lot of therapy and it's just delving with a lot of time on the symptom level. And it really, you're not going to get very far with that, especially when you start throwing medications at it to alleviate the symptoms, but not getting to the cause. And that then again ties back into a belief system that we believe that it can only be fixed through medicines, through tablets. And really, that's only just a method, a tactic to try and alleviate the suffering. And I'm not denying that it works for some people, and a lot of people it doesn't work for either. And I know that through a lot of study over the years, particularly when I was unwell myself. And I seeked a lot of information in different places all the time, always reading other people's experiences, whatever it was. And I found a lot of similarities between people with what they were experiencing, the tablets they had, the side effects, whatever it is. So what I have realized in my own life, that there's obviously a first cause, and I'm putting it to you yourself. What do you think that is? And I've suggested one thing, that a belief system about an imbalance. And I'm not saying I disagree with that. I don't think that's entirely the picture all the time for everyone. But even then, what's causing the imbalance? A lot of the time people are told the imbalance is hereditary, it's genetic. And there may be some truth to that to some degree, perhaps. But then again, there's also what's called epigenetics, which is the science of looking at, I guess beyond the normal idea of you're locked down to your genetics, and that you're in fact you're not locked down to them, so to speak, that just because there might be a genetic predisposition in your family to whatever it is, that doesn't mean that you are locked down to having that either. And I'm not talking about random things that maybe you get it, maybe you don't. I'm talking about even if you effectively said to have something, that there is a way to perhaps alleviate that or overcome that. But anyway, that's something that's worth studying into. Dr. Bruce Lipton is an absolute pioneer in this area, so I highly recommend you look into some of his work, things like the book Biology of Belief, but even just look at the science of it, all that stuff. But that's only one thing. I mean, what else do you think causes it? I mean, a lot of people have traumatic experiences in their life at different times, and if you think back in your own life, when did the problems begin for you? You know, and you might say, oh, teenage years, and then you might think, well, there's a few things happening then, but you know, you might think they may be the cause of it, but then you might think, well, no, I don't think they were dramatic enough, those things, to have been the cause. So then you go back further. You know, looking at our childhoods, you know, what are the parents like? What's your relationship with your parents like? A lot of people have a lot of problems with their parents in different ways. You know, even if they're good parents, those things can happen due to their own wounding and lack of awareness in their own lives about what they need to heal and how they've passed that on to you in some way, projected onto you. Not necessarily maliciously. There are some parents I know very aware of this through talking to people that haven't had very good parents at all, who were quite toxic. Okay, and that stuff does affect us. So, question to you is, excuse me, can we trace that back in your own life? Can you trace that back in your own life to what was going on? Was it problems that you had, maybe not to do with parents, other family members, or perhaps something? A number of things happened. You know, could be any extended family. Might not even be family. Could have been anything. But think about in your own life about key points in your life you can think were had quite a dramatic aspect to your life, whether it be not so well, focusing perhaps on the things that weren't so good. It's always good to balance it out and find what's good too if you can. We don't want to get too much just focusing on the negative aspects of our lives. We need to balance it out too. And so any time you do these sort of things, it's always good to balance it out with thinking about some positive things too at the end. You know, what were some good things about my life in the past, or even just now? What am I happy about? So just keep that in mind. But I mean, what are the other causes? What is the cause of what's going on for you, and what's keeping you there? Could it be lifestyle related? Could it be choices that you've made and continuing to make, or that are contributing to how you're feeling? Have you noticed on certain days where you feel more up, and other days you feel more down? What was the catalyst? Was there a catalyst? What were you thinking? You know, what's going through your mind now, or at those times? Being aware of these things. What sort of foods do you consume? Do you eat a healthy diet? And this is an interesting one to bring up, because I've asked people before about their food, their diet. So what's your diet like? And they say it's really healthy. And then when I ask them what does it entail, it's not healthy at all. It's just not. And it's just interesting how we can all do this in different ways, I suppose. Our idea of, well, in this context, health or healthy eating is often not necessarily the case. You know, there's a lot of things we might say, oh no, this is really good for me, but then when you delve a little bit, you find that it's whatever someone's doing or not doing is perhaps can be having an effect on them. So lifestyle is a very big part of that. You know, not just what's happened in the past, but even now. What are we doing to cultivate a healthier lifestyle? What sort of person do you really want to be? What does this person, this ideal version of yourself, do? Well, how do they spend their days? Have you got some sort of ideal in your mind of the sort of person you'd like to be, and if you do, no matter what it is, what small steps are you taking each day towards that? And the reason I bring all these things up is I've said before that it is a holistic approach towards cultivating a healthy lifestyle. And it really is that. It's a new lifestyle of this version of yourself you want to be. And I know that just changing lifestyle itself is not a panacea, but it's everything we start to look at. We're cultivating a lifestyle, a new life, a new you, and that new you does have to incorporate a lot of the time facing a lot of things, becoming aware of these aspects of ourselves that aren't particularly, they don't feel particularly good. There's some dark sides within our lives, some painful things that we need to face. I remember when I started doing this years ago, a long time ago, and I can't believe the realizations I made about things. I was just so shocked about it. It was hard to even accept that. And that is actually an interesting thing about humans, is that we often have this aspect within ourselves where we can't accept the truth. We just deny it, you know. And yeah, we're just not ready for it, so we deny it. So anyway, I've gone on a bit of a tangent. I was going to go into this little list thing here. So when I looked up about the mood disorders, about what what are the sort of attributes, what causes it, Well, some of the things that I wrote, not so much about the causes, but the experiences, are this ongoing sad, anxious, or empty mood. Again, what's causing that for you? What is missing? What are you trying to fulfill? What is it you can never really get to? What is it? What is missing? This feeling of hopeless or helpless feeling. Again, what is causing that? What do you need to remove that condition from your joy, from your happiness, from your contentment, fulfillment in life? What is it? What is it? Ask yourself these questions. Having lower self-esteem, where did that come from? Why do you have low self-esteem? When did it start? What sort of things are you telling yourself about yourself? Are they true? Excessive guilt, where did that come from? See, the reason I bring some of these things up is that people have this idea that it's just biology. Okay, so I mean, based on that, is it biological to feel empty? Is it biological to feel hopeless and helpless? Is it biological to have low self-esteem? Is it biological to feel, a sense of worthlessness or guilt? These things you aren't born with as such. I mean, some people, you want to get into the spiritual aspect, may say there's a karmic thing, but that's a whole another thing. I'm not touching on that. What I'm trying to get at here is these things have appeared in your life at some time, and they're contributing to how you're generally feeling now. And we've got so many things going on that it's no wonder that people are in a big mess with inside themselves. I know, I've been there. I've had all that stuff going on. And when I started, I went, wow, okay, I'll start doing this here and there and looking at this and that. Again, I was cultivating a new version of myself, a new lifestyle, that I decided not to be this other person anymore. I know that sounds perhaps a little, maybe, well, unrealistic perhaps in some way. Look, I've said this didn't happen overnight. Just a tremendous amount of study into the mind and brain and all sorts of things that I just started to try things in my life, adapt. I did a lot of things, and it wasn't just one thing. But I started to make the movement, getting energy towards who and where I wanted to be, and and it's become a very liberating thing for me because I don't have these problems anymore. Let's go back to this list. There's repeating thoughts of death and suicide, wishing to die, attempting suicide. Again, where did that come from? Do you think you're born with that? Were you born suicidal? Really? I mean, again, some people might say some people are, but I think if we talk about it from a general perspective, most people, this comes from somewhere. This is the extreme of inside ourselves screaming out, overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. Where do I go? I don't know how to deal with this emotion, these feelings. It's so much going on. It's just too much, And the interesting thing too about these sort of thoughts of, suicide and extreme depression and things, that a lot of reasons can contribute to that as well. What is causing that? Where did it come from? Sometimes you get to that state, it's multiple things, but it's a very, very overwhelming feeling. And the reason we get to that depth of feeling like we want to take our own lives, and I've been there, so I know that you just can't see a way out. You just can't, all right? And it's not true. It's for your own that state of mind. And I recommend, well, if you're feeling that way, to sort of reach out to somebody in some way, in one of those lines. But look, you don't need to go to, take your own life. You can turn things around. And hopefully in these videos, you'll see more and more about how maybe I sort of explain how to go about doing that. But yeah, look, you can turn it around. I've turned it around, so I just want to share that with anyone who's feeling that way at the moment. The loss of interest, in usual activities that I once enjoyed, including sex. That's not uncommon. There can be a lot of reasons for that. But again, that's generally something that comes as time goes on. We sort of just keep building momentum in that sort of way of feeling because we haven't delved with whatever's going on a deeper level. And a lot of it can be unconscious too. We're not conscious of what's going on inside ourselves. Trouble sleeping, changes of appetite, weight, decreased energy, trouble concentrating, decreasing the ability to make decisions, frequent physical complaints, example, headache, stomachache, tiredness that don't get rid of treatment, running away or threats of running away from home, very sensitive to failure, rejection, irritability, hostility, or aggression. Now, these aren't just character aspects, personality traits that some people have and don't have. These can be changed. Absolutely can. Without a doubt, you can call it my belief if you want to, but hey, if I've turned myself completely around, I don't see why anyone else can't. Is it easy? No, not necessarily. Sometimes we've got to face a lot of things that aren't that comfortable to turn things around. What I'm trying to paint a picture here is that just reading through that list, hopefully you understand that these things you weren't just born with, okay? These have come from somewhere at some point, whatever they are, you know, whether it's comes from family or whatever, or at some point you've come to this belief, and we have a very, our society overall puts a lot of pressure on people in different ways and creates this false sense of reality for most people in some way. So people looking at social media, looking at thinking people's lives are much better than their own, for instance, and then compare yourself to what you think other people are doing, and a lot of that's just fantasy anyway. You know what I mean? Nobody's putting up the fights they've had with their partner online and the aggression and all the terrible things. They only put up the nice photos, okay? So we get distorted reality anyway. And then if you know, couple that with maybe you've got some issues around your body weight. I had that. I was very overweight. And that can, you know, contribute to your feeling of self-worth and all of these things. But we're often giving away our power to everything outside ourselves as well. We've got to find that within inside ourselves, and we need to work on things. We do. Personal development, if you want to call it that, is a very important thing we should all be doing in life. And not just turning up the therapist office however often and go, all right, I'll come up and then I'll do nothing for the rest of the time. We really got to take action in our lives. Say, hey, what sort of life do I want to build? Who do I really want to be? What's the best version of myself that I can work towards, you know? And it can be simple. It doesn't have to be all this, got to do so much over the top to get it all going. Simple thing. Let's say you do no exercise. Maybe you want to set your goal that you walk to the letterbox and back. I know it's probably not going to be very far for most people, but you might do that a few times. Set the goal really low. And then all of a sudden you go, well, this is pretty easy. I might walk around the block or half the block or whatever it may be. Before you know it, you're actually doing something. Same with like people think, oh, I'm going to start a gym thing. They want the idea, I'm going to do this many push-ups, all this, over the top. It's just no good. Not the way to go. You got to trick your mind to do the opposite. You set the bar so ridiculously low, like, all right, let's say, push-ups can be a bit challenging for most people who've never done them. But let's say, we'll use it anyway. Let's say you could do at least 3. You might say to yourself, all right, I'm going to do 10 push-ups a day. But already you've gone way beyond what you can do, and you're not going to enjoy that. So, especially if you've got a mindset of not enjoying, you know, fitness or exercise, so you might say, all right, well, I'm going to do 1. That's it. One a day. That's all I'm going to do. And then you might do the 1, and you might do it first a few times, and then you go, okay, I'm going to do, you know, 2 or 3. I'll do as many as I can. But the thing is, by starting low, setting your benchmark so low that it's so ridiculously low, whatever it might be, as I said, walking to the letterbox, or, you know, instead of you never wash your dishes, but you say, oh, I'll wash 1 plate. But then as you're washing 1, you think, well, I might as well wash another 1, and before you know it, you probably wash them all, or at least made a good chunk into it than you were going to. So, you know, you can set the bar sort of low with things, but start working towards where you want to be, the person you want to be, and then, you know, block out all negativity thinking. Just be sure in yourself, okay, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be, you know, and along the path you're going to make some bumps in the road, you know, you're going to go back from where you were, but you just keep going in the general direction. Don't have to tell anybody what you're doing. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing, except for my psychiatrist, I think, many years ago, that I said I'd had enough of this. I'm not doing the drugs anymore. I'm going to work it out myself, and I did. It wasn't easy. But yeah, you don't have to tell anybody. You just work quietly in the direction you want to go. And the thing is, the goal's not really the thing you should just be looking for, the result at the end. It's who you become in the process of doing so too, you know. Transforming, just taking the effort to try and improve your life in some way is already great reward in itself, and who you become in that is interesting too. So I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here again, but I'm just, to reiterate this video, it's like, well, what is the cause of your problems? You know, you'll know better than anybody else, and you can really think about that. When did this start? When did I first notice this? When were my first problems? When did I start feeling terrible? What exacerbates it? What makes it worse? What improves it? What sort of foods am I eating that could be working against me? Pay attention to what you're eating too, really do. How do you feel after you eat certain things? Certain things just make you feel terrible. I know. I eat fairly clean, and occasionally I'll eat even like what some people think is a relatively inoffensive meal in terms of health that's cooked. I'll eat it, and then, like, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour later, I just feel tired and lethargic and heavy, and thinking, you really just start to notice when you start to eat really clean and that. But again, these things contribute to a feeling of well-being. So eating well is a big one, very big. But even noticing, like, what the music you're listening to. You're listening to music makes you feel sad. What happens if you put on some upbeat music? How does that make you feel? Does that? I mean, generally it will improve if you just keep listening to enough. But sometimes when we're feeling low, that's the least thing we want to do. We want to. A lot of time, I remember there's this interesting feeling when you're really depressed that you just sort of. I used to feel like I just really wanted to, almost drown in it sometimes. So put on things that made me feel worse. Don't know why. Somehow feeling worse made me feel better, which is doesn't sound like a healthy combination, really, but it's how I felt. But what I'm suggesting too in those things, that we've got to try and bring ourselves back to a place of balance. Same with like if you've got manic episodes. Well, maybe you want to sort of look at the foods too. Maybe don't drink any coffee at those times. Alcohol's probably not a great one either. Certainly stay away from all the party drugs. And I mean, don't take that stuff anyway, really, you can avoid it. It's no good for your mind at all. Your brain, chemistry, no good for a lot of reasons. But other foods like sugar, that just brings you up, drops you down. You want to sort of find a way to calm yourself. So trying bringing ourselves back to a sense of balance as much as possible. But yeah, a lot of things do need to be looked at in life, worked on, and as I said, it's about cultivating a lifestyle, becoming the best version of yourself. Anyway, I'm going to leave that here. Wish you all a wonderful day, wonderful night wherever you are. I'll turn the camera around hoping that, I'm sitting in the car, because the wind was a bit noisy on the microphone out there, and I was hoping you'd pick up the beach behind me, but I don't think you see that so well. But anyway, if anybody, I also offer coaching, so if anybody would like to reach out to me, I have those details in the description below. Again, I just wish you all the very best.